Chapter 8, Productive Principle. Statement of principle. The measurement cost of change accurately induced with the railroad regulatory purposes shall incorporate the changes productivity as well as the change of input price. Explanation of the cost change results for the manufacturers, including price change, purchase of goods, service, change the volume of the next output is change within consumption of goods, service required with the reduce the output of the productive measurement, the comparison with the quantity of the goods or service produced with the relative to the quantity for the procedure. Resources using the producing them for goods and services. The concept of the productivity is rooted in the notation of the product function. The product function demonstrates the physical volume of the output dependent on the physical volume of the resource of the use of the product process on the efficiency which they are used on. Either productivity, the measure of the productivity change with the measure of the output, sum of the periods divided by the change of the sum of the feature of the input, the same in the time period. Kendrick and Grossman, 1980. Productivity should be measured with the long-term trend and the relative production efficiency of the over the time of the productive change with the railroad industry. According with the quarter-to-quarter share is rear of the prop too often and due to unpredictable change of the railroad transport dominated within markets. Over the long period of the productive change with the tend to even out with a more consistent value over than the short period because of the possible short-term fluctuation in the productivity over stable to achieve for the adjusting input of the product indice at the time of the trending productivity of the capture of the long-term smoothest of railroad productivity changes and of including productivity measure. The following example shows the importance of the reflecting productivity change with the measurement economically accurate cost. Assuming the railroad has the actual coal from a point from B with the cost of $10 per ton, input price raise of the 4% in 1 year. The railroad obtains a labor agreement with the permits the operating with the crews more efficient labor. The hours required during the same year reduce the impact of the labor reduction lowers the total cost of requirements about approximately 2%. Assuming the base of 1.01 to the 10,000, 1 index of 1, the price index increases to 1.040, the same value as the productivity adjusted for the index, but assume with the 0% with the productivity increase, the using of the input, the price measures the cost and increases the railroad and would measure the increase for the cost of the present to $10.40 per ton. However, taking the productivity account with the total increase for the cost of their experience with the railroad only with the $10.196 per ton to as i.e. 10 to the times 1.040 divided by 1.020, the $10 cost per ton and multiplied increase in price index to the 1.040, then divided in by 1.020, the reflective 2% productivity increase is not adjusting the productivity overstates railroad cost increase beyond the actual experience. Alternatively, for the included productivity measures and cost indexes, the railroad program, a railroad accounting principle board considered the following three alternatives in connection with the productivity regulatory cost indexes. Recommended that the Interstate Commerce Commission promptly implement an appropriate methodology to measure the incorporated productivity input cost indices. Recommended the Interstate Commerce Commission promptly implement a productivity measurement methodology specified by the railroad accounting principle measure for the incorporated productivity into the input cost indexes. Recommended that no productivity measure incorporated with the cost indexes. The railroad accounting program principles showed that the first alternative must be modified at the time implementation. Analysis of alternative. The argument supporting the alternatives have been organized with the following section: economic accuracy, practicality. Economic accuracy consists of the objective of the establishing principle to determine the economically accurate rail cost. The railroad accounting principle believes the productive principle is appropriate for the two reasons: exclusion implicity of assuming the value of assuming zero productivity is changing, and inclusion result the more economically accurate with the cost measurement. The two reasons for the including the productivity adjustment of the closing related with ignoring the productivity change with the cost measurement, the effective with the productivity change with the reflective on the zero productivity adjusting. However, there are no productivity change that does not mean that do not exist. Rather, disregard of the appropriate productivity adjustment results in questionable economic accuracy. Productive gains and losses affected with the cost of measurement, it would be explained from rather than the rules. Productive would remain undercharged with a substantial period with its expense, especially since the productive improvements have been significantly over the railroad's railway edge of the 1986 summarized that the railroad's effective efforts toward the importance placed on the productivity in all cases They provided with the productivity has major goal. The railroads still have ways to be have the productivity that they might be, but the deregulation with the consolidation by whatever they're taking, the industry is getting better with the more productivity, giving the capital need with the view of the intensive nature of the transportation competition, the industry, the cost cannot afford to let up the search for the still higher productivity. An annual report for the major records reflective of the important productivity, for example, the 1985 annual report of the Union of Pacific Corporation is typical of the emphasis placed on the productivity and taste states the drive the increased productivity and see and saying that all phases of the railroad operations to meet the competition with increase or maintain the market, but railroads must be constantly seeking the production growth. That they are investing in computers, other technology advancement, increasing the research budget and the restoring of the track, and increasing the competition, deregulation, motivators, and the railroad are moving toward even more innovations of the product and achievements. In the final analysis, incorporating the appropriate product of the measurement with the regulatory input indexes result in the economically aggregate cost indexes, therefore measurably total change that accurately predictive the means that they include the Railroad Accounting Principle Board relatively relies on existing work presently available. The expertise of the Interstate Commerce Commission will be able to measure the product of implementation such measures as 18 months publication of the Railroad Accounting Principles. Alright, practicality. Some of the commenters know over the standard railroad productivity is simple for the purpose they argue for the main existing purpose for the measure of the railroad productivity inaccurate, unreliable, unsound. The economic community would recognize the difference with the measuring of the productivity behavior, the measurement of the productive prepare for the conference of the agenda economical research of productivity in 1973 by Irvin H. Segal from the U.S. Department of the Commerce and observed the productivity measure issues. Dependent on the definition of the preparation on the verifying components, measure only the aid of the more convenient convention compromise the economic significance with a numerical result. Often non-measurable manner prescribed in the algebra because of the data limitations, even the success figure approximation methodological eliminations, and not at all underlying input variables are not significant quantability. Frequently measured the composite with an average and index number from which the more than one represents the conceivable algebra feasible. Anselin, ET 1901 National Regulatory Research Institute observed the productivity measure of construction as an attempt to identify changes in the level of production that cannot be explained by changes in the uses of associated inputs and characteristics of the original production process. This is not easy to identify the causal factors according to the observed product growth. Alright, past studies of the railroad productivity will be the railroad labor statistics. John Kendrick from the Task Force of Railroad Productivity has arrived at a different result with the brand 1974. The Bureau of Logistics Statistics used the Department of Labor using the labor physical unit, ignoring the wage levels and the wage level gains and measured physical gains of the railroad productivity approximately 5% annually during the 1950 to 1976. Similarity, usually the capital in addition to the labor that demonstrated an average increase in the railroad productivity of 5.2% between 1948 and 1966. Physical measure. However, the task force on the railroad productivity used an alternative assumption measure of the calculated relatively conservative average increase of the labor productivity of a 3.7% from the 1947 to 1970. The difference between these measures lies mainly in the different approach concepts and approach. Economic Solomon Fabricant summing up the difficulties surrounding the productivity measurement stated by the article declined the problems of productivity measurement in the book Measuring Productivity 1984. Economics do not agree with the productivity concept best suited for the objective even though when they do, they are not necessarily the one mindful measurement of the best conforms to the concept provided with the best compromise for the inaccuracy of the data. Other economics reinforce the view of the application of one of the productive measurement, the relevant purpose, the unlikely to view the adoption, particular measurement, the function of the use of the measurement, the belief of the only product methodology for all the railroad purpose of the unlikely necessary. Alright, because of the question appropriate productivity measure has raised the commentary for the Railroad Accounting Principle Board and to ensure that the Railroad Accounting Principle Board considered whether the particular product of the methodology should be recommended. Some of the commentators have stated as a productive measurement do exist and have proposed the Railroad Accommodation Principle Board. Endorses the particular methodology as such as the total factor productive measurement developed in Douglas W. C. Caves and Lattice R. Christian's sampling particular movements and using series productive measurements. The older parties agree with the productivity principle that they did not believe that it could be applied practically. Some believe that the cave Christensen and existing methodologies were deficient. Root accounting principle board the decision of the caves and Christians result physically and in status depending on rulemaking ex parte number 290. Sub number 4, railroad cost recovery procedures productivity adjustment. The railroad, when the Interstate Commerce Commission directed the attention to the appropriate discussion should be constructed with detailed endorsement critical with the Cave Christians of methodology, the choice of the appropriate methodology measuring the Interstate Commerce Commission physical implementation issues. The railroad accounting principle board believe the Interstate Commerce was developed an implementation appropriate product measure within 18 months following the publication of the Railroad Accounting Principle. In this regard, the BLS or the BLS is developing multifactorial railroad productivity similar to the total factory concept. The BLS has stated with the Bureau of Logistics Statistics requested to develop the multiple factor railroad productivity measure about 1 year when the Bureau of Logistics effort may be helpful. The interstate commerce in no way substitute the interstate commerce own study of the productivity. An appropriate productive assessment adjustment is to be included with all indexes designed measuring economical appropriate ag cost changes. Application: the product principle productivity principle addresses the two applications of the government purpose costing system and the railway costing adjustment factor. General purpose costing system, the product of the principle affecting the general purpose costing system, and all the other applications within the government purpose costing system are used. The cost indexes are used to restate the historic cost level to present cost level following the two different applications to adjust the pool cost to the common pace of the joint using regression analysis. The index variable unit cost is derived with the cost principle of 1 year period of the subsequent period. Whenever cost was one period, are adjusted through the index represented with the cost in another period. Productive principles require that the indexes should include the appropriate measure of the changes in productivity. The quality principle requires the principle of productivity changes should be measured with the category cost and type of the traffic which is applied. However, the productivity principle may temper implementation product measurement, and an average estimated the product measurement may be used either the cost-effective material or reason. Alright, the real cost adjustment factor of the product principle also may be affected with the real cost adjustment factor of the strategic staggered rail act neither precludes the productivity adjustment of the rail cost adjustment factor matter of law. Western Coal Traffic Leave versus the United States cert denied in 459 U.S. 1086 1982 adjustment of the railroad cost adjustment factor productivity and an issue with it must be involved with the Interstate Commerce Commission ruling making. Railroad Accounting Principle Board believes the appropriate adjustment productivity is necessary for the railroad costing adjustment factor to measure the cost of change accurately, that the Interstate Commerce Commission should implement the appropriate productivity adjustment of the railroad cost adjustment factor. The application of the product principle of the railroad cost adjustment factor is discussed in detail in Chapter 14, Railroad Cost Adjustment Factor. Part 2, Specific Applications.